This is something that has bothered me for a very long time. I have tried asking all kinds of people about what it could be. This is the first time I have posted in an alien abduction area, as it has never really occurred to me to do so. I have had this memory in the back of my mind ever since I was a very young child. It was something I didn't think about much as a kid, but as I grew up, it unnerved me the more I thought about it. The memory is an examination table. I was young, a child, probably only 3 or 4 in this memory, but it's so fuzzy. Unlike all my other memories from that age, I am in a room surrounded by medical cabinets, 2 strangers wearing white, but I was too scared to look at their faces, and one persona who was supposedly a parent, but something felt off, and it didn't feel like one of my parents at all. There was a large circuit light made up of smaller lights above me, much like the ones used in surgery, and they moved it down as I was instructed to lay flat on the exam table. I remember it felt soft and warm, not like exam tables usually felt. That's when things got strange, and what actually troubled me? They reached for a metal tool which had a similar shape to a small handheld power drill, but on the end it was a long head that had several rows of small bristles running down the length of it. Then they told me to hold still, which made me very nervous, and I started crying. They told me to stop crying, and it'd be over quickly, and moved it between my legs, where it felt as if it were inserted into my urethra. It was painful, and it burned, but thankfully it only lasted around 5 seconds before it was removed. After removal, I was obviously crying and scared, but I could hear them talking to my parent, beside me saying that she will probably need to have this redone when she's older, to which my parent agreed, and helped me off the table. I asked my mother if I had ever had any procedures as a child, and she denied any knowledge of it at all. I also had my medical records checked, and it was nowhere to be seen. There was nothing at all like it. I also researched what the heck it could have been, and if it was a genuine medical procedure, but I've been unable to find anything that fits it exactly. It bothers me, because it doesn't make any sense, and it was definitely not a dream. After that age, I used to get severe pain when peeing until I reached around 10 years old. Does anyone have the idea what it could have been? I have posted in medical places online about this, on paranormal sites, all sorts, and so far no one can give me any answers. I was driving home late one night and saw chrome orbs. I was about 19 and lived in a university town in Vermont. I was partying at a school, but driving home just out of town. I admit I drank a little and smoked some, but I wasn't tripping, although I felt like it. I was driving down what we called the Beltline. It is a faster road that goes through a swamp area, and my exit was a jug handle that swung further out into the marsh area before cutting back over the road on a bridge. If you're from the area, you know where I'm talking about. I was the only car on the road, and when approaching the principal of the corner under the streetlights, I see 5 basketball-sized orbs hovering, one above the other in an arc. The bottom one was about hood level. Coming upon them, my brain was struggling to understand what I was seeing. I didn't slow down, and it was only when they were right in front of me did I realize they appeared to be chrome orbs hovering. They looked like those decorative garden orbs you put on a pedestal in the garden or yard. They did not emit light so much as they reflected the light around them softly in a strange way, almost just like the edges were visible and darker in the center. There were a lot of street lights, so it wasn't the lack of light, and my headlights were right on them. I approached fast and I actually made contact with the bottom one. This is the weirdest part. The orb I contacted seemed to disperse in pieces, almost like it shattered out of existence. When it did so, I remember thinking that the edge looked like fireflies in a perfect circle, and then simply disappeared in all directions. I immediately said, "Holy shit, that was awesome." I looked in the rear view and saw nothing. I always wish I had slowed down. There was no missing time and no damage to the car. It was like the first contact where the car was flashing and struggling to run. I went home, and with the excitement I was making noise, and my stepdad came down. I told him what I'd seen, and he told me it was swamp gas and to go to bed. He's a very reasonable guy, so shrugged me off quickly. I told a few friends about what I had seen, and then we thought I was a little crazy, so I stopped telling that story. I will never forget that night. As time goes on, it gets hazier, but I always look up in the sky, hoping to see something again. Prior to this, I had another experience. I was younger, maybe 16. I have always been afraid of the dark and even aliens. When I was young, I saw some unsolved mysteries about UFOs and abductions, and probably slept with a blanket over my head for 3 years straight. Anyway, family trip to Key West. We rented a condo, and my dad and sister claimed the 2 rooms downstairs, so I was stuck with the room all the way upstairs, and down the hall in a house I didn't know. They can sleep through anything, so I was always upset they took the safe rooms and left me alone far away. I couldn't sleep one night, so I was up late watching TV. There was a window to the left of me. Being the Key West is an island, if you look in any direction far enough away, it will be over the ocean. I look from the TV out to the window, just randomly, and I see a far off red light. It wasn't flashing, and it was moving normally, almost like a plane or helicopter across the sky. I can't remember if it stopped first or not, but it then shot up straight in incredible speeds. This was not man-made. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The first sighting was a few months ago. I was in the passenger seat when I noticed, along with my auntie, something orange hovering over the sky, slightly at about a 45 to 50 degree angle. On closer inspection, it appeared to have 2 small orange lights. I saw it hovering for about 10 to 15 seconds before it lit up really bright, and then the light completely died out and it had disappeared. The second one was on the night of April 25th. I was sat on the beach with my girlfriend and was looking up at the sky, as I normally do, keeping an eye out. And all of a sudden, 2 bright white lights, which were parallel to each other, shot across the sky so fast that by the time I had pointed it out to my girlfriend, they had completely disappeared. Again, there was no noise at all, and whatever it seemed to be relatively low flying, or massive, as the lights were very bright, and it was cloudy at night. Although I could not see any shapes of an aircraft or anything, I've seen a few weird things in the sky, but this one totally spooked me as it seemed so close. The third time was when me and my girlfriend were in an airplane, on our way back from Amsterdam. It was about 10 minutes after takeoff from Schiphol Airport, and me and my girlfriend were looking out the plane window when we noticed a small orange light zipping about all over the place in the same sort of area. It was going so fast and either left a trail behind or appeared to as it was moving so fast. It then stopped still for a few seconds and then zipped off and had disappeared before we knew it. I had never seen something like that in all of my life and thought it could have been down to some sort of phenomenon. Also, to add to this, not long after this, my girlfriend spotted something else, which she said seemed quite close to the plane. Just as she pointed it out to me, the pilot banked very slightly, so the wing of the plane covered whatever it was she saw, and I never got a glimpse. Then we were discussing what we had just seen. The stewardess shot her head around at my girlfriend after she heard us talking, which my girlfriend said gave her goosebumps, and it was like something from a movie. That same night we arrived home, we saw something else very strange when we were outside our house at about 1:45 a.m. on the 29th of April. It was slightly bigger than your average star, and shined slightly brighter than your average star. It was going across the sky slowly, but in comparison to the commercial aircraft, it was very, very fast. We spotted it at around the 60-degree angle, and it went right across the sky until it disappeared behind us into the house in roughly 30 seconds. The strangest thing was, it approached what appeared to be a normal group of stars. However, at this certain point when it went past the stars, about 4 or 5 seemed to gravitate towards it slightly, and then it passed. They returned to their positions they were in before. I don't expect all of you to believe me, as I would be slightly doubtful of somebody claiming to have seen 4 UFOs in the space of a few months, but the fact remains that I know what I saw, and I'm simply asking for help to identify them, as I'm sure at least some can be explained as military aircraft or natural light phenomenon. These are not the only weird things I've seen in the sky. One night at 3 a.m. I was alone outside, having a cigarette when half the sky illuminated for no longer than 2 seconds. It froze me in fear, and I sat there internally freaking out at what the hell could have been so bright that it lit up half the sky. The reason I've seen more recently is simply due to the fact that I am looking to the skies more, now after my interest in UFOs and researching them. All I know is I know what I saw in only one of the 3 recent sightings I saw alone. The other 3, there was at least one witness to them. I would appreciate any ideas on what any of them could have been. Thank you. It was Friday, September 8th, 2018. 3 of my fraternity brothers and I were on our way to Clemson, South Carolina to visit some friends at the University of Tennessee. We were all completely sober, by the way. This total drive was around 3.5 hours, and around an hour and a half in or so we were somewhere in North Carolina, near an exit with a Bojangles. It was around 4:30 in the afternoon, with plenty of light out when I, the driver, spotted something straight up fucking abnormal in the sky. It was a large black rectangular object with 2 circular lights on either side hovering in the sky, maybe 100 yards or so away. Honestly, I suck with estimating distances, so I don't know if that's entirely accurate. After a few seconds of straight up panic, I pointed it out to the 3 other guys in the car, where they were just as confused as I was. It was literally just sitting there in the sky, completely still, but it didn't look like a drone. I mean, this thing was honestly fucking big, even from a distance. If anyone knows what a Juul electronic cigarette looks like, it basically looked like that if it was lying horizontally and had a circular orb looking things on either sides. And me and my friends were freaking out because it was seriously unlike any man-made object I had seen. It had an eerie vibe associated with just the look of it. After we all stared at it for around 20 seconds or so, I had to veer to the left to get on the road that leads back to the highway, and some trees blocking the way. This was maybe 10 to 15 seconds, and then we turned right back towards the way we could see where it was. And as we looked up, it was literally gone. In a matter of literally 15 seconds at most. It was bright out with huge white fluffy heavenly clouds, just for the record. I would seriously appreciate if anyone knows anything that could explain any of this, cause right now, I honestly believe it was an alien spacecraft, as I literally don't know what else it could have been. I'll answer any questions and would love some serious feedback. Okay, this is my first post ever, and I set up this account specifically to make it, because this has been bugging me. I've considered that it may have been a satellite, but I don't know much about satellites, and I'm pretty sure they're meant to be a lot up higher in the sky than this thing was. Sometime around 10 or 11 p.m. last Wednesday, May 1st, I saw a thing in the sky above Edinburgh, Scotland. I've checked the list at the top of the sub, and it doesn't really fit any of those. I'll try to describe it. First of all, I saw the actual object, not just lights. It was either enormous or it wasn't very up high. I feel like it was in combination of the two. It was half obscured by a thin cloud, so it was slightly faint, but I could still see it very clearly. When I first saw it, I thought it was a plane, but I quickly realized it was a way too low big B. The wrong shape and C. There were no flashing lights on it like you see on planes. Plus, when I see a plane in the night sky, all I see is a light in the sky, and it's very obviously a plane. Anyway, it had a longish body, and what did look like wings on each side, but the wings were not perpendicular to the body like you'd see in a plane. They were on an angle, kind of like a big X, I suppose, but flying in the direction of an arm of an X, with the other arms being the wings, at an angle to the body. Now, before anyone says it, I know the difference between seeing a thing that is actually shape and seeing a thing from an angle. It absolutely was that shape. Each of the two arms had 2 large lights on it, not bright pinpricks of lights like you normally see in the night sky, but large, round, and not very bright lights. They were blinking or flashing, and they were sort of a neutral color. It was moving in the straight line, northeast I think, and the speed wasn't striking for an object in the sky. It wasn't especially fast or slow. And then here's the thing that made my jaw drop. It fucking disappeared. Now, I want to repeat, I saw this actual thing, so it wasn't just like something turned off the lights on it. I saw the body of the object and the lights both disappear. When I say it disappeared, I don't mean it blinked out of existence. It rapidly faded, then gone. It didn't fly into a thicker blanket of cloud. If anything, the cloud it was behind was thinning out. Guys, what was this thing? If it weren't for the fact that it fucking vanished, I would have thought much less of it. But that's really got me baffled. I've never had any interest in UFOs in my life. Never seen anything in the sky that made me look twice, let alone gawk at it with my mouth open, and then start posting about it on the internet. Thoughts? At around 10:25 p.m. on the 5th of May, I was driving out the coast of Guernsey, heading home after going for a drive when I spotted what seemed to be a very bright orange star. After driving a bit, I stopped the car since I was surprised how bright it was. When I exited the car, I realized the orange light was moving very slowly across the sky. On top of that, I could discern a very triangular shape to it. There were no flashing lights, and it seemed to move way too slow for a plane. I immediately opened Flight Trader 24 via 4G to see if I could spot any planes or helicopters that it could be, but to my surprise, completely nothing. I continued to look at the object as it slowly went across the sky, as it passed over me, and gradually went further away. As it did, it began to speed up and eventually disappear into the horizon. I was incredibly mystified to what I had just saw, but I convinced myself I had just seen a private jet or some other aircraft. Since it was really late, I continued driving home like normal. When I got to my house, I noticed another orange star, exactly the same to the one I had seen the time going northeast. I was baffled by this, and immediately got my phone out to record it. This time as the object went towards the horizon, it began to move erratically side to side before going out of my view once again. Continually mystified about the exact same object I had seen, only this one seemed to have more movement. I headed into my house a few minutes later. Interest got hold of me, and I decided to head out and walk to the beach to see if I could spot any more of these strange objects. I stood on the beach for probably a good half hour, just mesmerized by the clear night sky, watching all the constellations. And that's when I saw it again. A very bright orange light coming in my direction, although this time it was very quick. I took another recording and did my best to attempt to zoom in on the aircraft. The video didn't seem to pick up a triangular shaped object, but it was still very bad quality. I watched it as it sped through the night sky faster than a jet, and it started to really slow down at a certain point. The next part creeped me the fuck out. The craft halted, and then it literally looked like it launched up into the sky, taking off going faster and faster. It seemed faster than an actual rocket, and it just kept speeding up to the night sky before phasing out of my view into space. I'm writing this a day after since I really want to share my story. Is this a famous black triangle UFO that I've heard people report throughout the years? Although a more fitting name seems to be orange triangle, as the object seemed to be a deep and complete orange color. Seeing one UFO is something, but seeing three of supposedly the same types in one evening, I couldn't even believe it, especially considering I've never seen a UFO before. Of course, sightings so close together could suggest planes, but as I said above, nothing even appeared on the flight radar. And on top of that, why did one of them move so radically, and the other seemed to launch into the sky? Perhaps someone can come up with an explanation, but I cannot think of any rational explanations of my own. There are no launch pads or anything near me. Also, I apologize for the long post, but I need to get this off my chest. Love to hear your thoughts on this, and I hope this is the appropriate sub. Perhaps some others have seen similar objects in the couple nights across the UK or something. This is something I have never shared with anyone, although over the years occasionally I have been searching the web for answers to what it was that I saw. It happened back in the early 90s when I was in my teens. The only other witness that I'm certain of were my younger sister and another kid from the neighborhood same age as her, about 10 years old at the time. It happened in Eastern Europe where I grew up, in my hometown near the Duop River. It was in the early afternoon. Me and my sister and a boy living nearby were hanging out outside near my house, just talking, hanging out. The typical stuff kids used to do before the mass proliferation of the internet and before the video games were really a thing. It was a clear, warm summer afternoon, and there weren't any other people nearby outside that we could see or hear. All of a sudden, one of us, I can't remember who of the three of us spotted it first, said, "What is this?" and pointed upwards. We all looked up and observed a burning fire floating slowly in the sky in what appeared to be a straight line. When I say burning fire, I mean we could see the fiery object with the flames burning, just slowly floating about. I can't estimate its altitude or size, since those things are hard to determine in a situation such as this, but it seemed fairly large, and I'd say up at the altitude of which a small plane would fly. It definitely didn't seem to be something of an intelligent design, and I wasn't really that knowledgeable on the matter of space debris and heavenly bodies as such. At the time I assumed it was a meteorite or debris, fragments from the meteor in the lower atmosphere burning itself out. However, later on I learned that's not normal for outer space material to behave that way after entering the Earth's atmosphere, just floating about slowly in the sky after an impact with it. It had somewhat irregular shape to it and simply looked like a huge burning fire floating in the sky. Has anyone ever witnessed something like that? Or has any logical scientific explanation for what it might have been that the three of us witnessed and observed on that day? I must add, I remember as I was watching it, I worried that it would fall into the ground and cause a huge fire somewhere close where we were. It was a fairly large and dense residential area, but it simply kept moving in the air, not falling down or changing its altitude. That I could tell, till it disappeared from the sight behind the trees. Okay, before the incident, I wasn't a strong believer in UFOs. I thought they were like a chupacabra or Bigfoot. Anyways, it was about 6:20 p.m. on Saturday night, and before my mother goes to sleep, she tells me to take the cat litter out because I forgot to empty it. Usually she would get mad and I would get in trouble, but not really though. But anyways, she was tired and went to her room while I was grabbing the cat shit. My father was downstairs on the sofa watching TV, and I told him I'm taking out the trash, and I opened the garage door and bring it to the trash can. The trash can on the side of our house. It wasn't completely dark because the sun was almost setting, but I could still see things clear. I put the trash in the trash can. When I turned around, a large metallic disc aircraft seemed to be hovering adjacent to where I was standing. The disc was about 60 feet in the air, and it was close enough that if I had one of those huge 25-foot construction ladders on top of my roof, I could climb onto it. The craft was a silver metallic color, and there was a weird waviness about the craft. Kinda looked how things look wavy because they're behind a campfire. Anyways, the disc stood in the sky for about 2 minutes, and it tilted to its side and took off straight super high. I was shocked because it was 100% quiet. No sonic boom or propulsion takeoff sound. This was weird because it was gone past the clouds literally in 1 second. It was like the clouds moved to the craft instead of the craft actually flying. During the time I saw the craft, I felt weird. It was like it was in shock because I didn't even think about pulling out my phone to take a photo or run inside to tell my parents. I felt a weird heavy feeling, and it felt like I couldn't move my body or breathe. But I was standing, and I knew I was breathing because I wasn't dead on the floor. I go inside, and I didn't tell my parents because I thought they wouldn't believe me and think I'm insane. Anyway, I look back inside and go to my room and turn on the TV. Still to this day, I haven't told anyone except my close friends. I'm curious about what type of UFO, or how it was able to propel itself so fast and quickly. If anyone has any information about the topic, please reply. Lastly, what do you think of it? Ever since the experience, I am now truly a believer of UFOs. One summer in the early 70s, my sister was spending a couple weeks at her grandmother's cattle ranch in Montana. This was a way for her to get away from Los Angeles for a while as she preteened, spend time with the cousins, and get to know grandmother better. The ranch is approximately 10 miles from the paved highway and around 26 miles to the nearest town, Lewistown, in central Montana. So while not considered completely isolated, it is definitely off the beaten path. The nearest neighbor is about 1.5 miles from our house. So on this particular evening, it was around 9:30 p.m., not completely dark yet, and my sister was not tired and wanted to take a walk outside, but my grandma was insisting that it was time for bed and she should stay in the house. So my grandmother went to bed, and my sister found herself standing at the large living room window, looking out beyond the driveway and onto the surrounding landscape as the darkness settled in. She was staring at the window she suddenly sees a large white illuminated orb that she believed to be around 30 feet in diameter. At first, the orb was stationary, seemingly floating around 100 feet off the ground. It was approximately 200 yards from the house. At first, she assumed it was the headlights of an approaching car coming up the dirt road, but then she realized that the object was too high to be a car. Then she thought that maybe it was a reflection of something on the window, but looking around and upward, she could see no other source of light that would account for this large glowing orb. When discussing this event with her, I asked her if there had been any clouds or rainy weather, and she told me that it was perfectly clear and nice out. I was considering the possibility that what she saw might have been a ball lighting. As she continued to watch the orb, it began to slowly move towards the house, and then within a few more moments, the orb split into two smaller orbs of equal size, and each orb flew away in opposite directions at a moderate speed, only to return a minute or two later and rejoin as a single orb. The single orb then departed the area at a high rate of speed. The next morning, she told my grandmother what she had seen, and grandmother dismissed the light as probably an approaching vehicle, or maybe an airplane or something. She did not seem interested in exploring it any further. What my sister was not aware of at the time when she witnessed this event was just about 50 yards further down the road that runs parallel with the ranch property fence, and very close to where my sister estimates the orb is a 15-foot tall earthen burn, and on the other side of the burn is a USAF Minuteman nuclear ICBM missile silo installation. My sister had never seen anything like what she had seen before, or since. She is, however, absolutely convinced that it was a real thing close to the house, and close off the ground. Not an airplane, or headlights, or a reflection off the window, or anything she could compare to a known object. Recently, her and I discussed this event in detail. I asked her if she had seen a big ball of lighting. She said she was not familiar with the ball lighting, so she couldn't say one way or the other. We went on YouTube and watched videos of ball lighting, and upon seeing the ball lighting videos, she told me that what she saw did not resemble or act like the ball lighting that was depicted on the videos. Not at all. Personally, my gut and logics tell me that this was ball lighting, something a young lady from Los Angeles, California didn't know existed at the time. However, there have been similar reports occurring near our ICBM launch sites in Montana since then. You can draw your own conclusions. I had a strange sighting in my backyard last night. We had a round of severe thunderstorms late evening around 8:30 to 9 p.m. I was on the back porch having a cigarette just before the storms began. I could see the edge of the storm just over the hills to my west, and it just looked really cool, so I was watching it when a triangular-shaped light flew over my house, probably at about the speed of a shooting star would be moving at. It was flying to the north, which was pretty well cloudless, so I could see it until some trees blocked my view. I couldn't judge the altitude, but I'd say maybe around 25k feet. It was a solid white triangular light. No blinking lights, just solid. For some reason, I started to panic and feel real anxious. I felt like I needed to get away from my house for a few minutes, and I needed a pack of cigarettes anyway. So I rode up the road to the sheets before the storm started. On my way, I called a non-emergency number because I felt like I needed to tell someone what I'd seen. The person I talked to said that they had another call for about a similar light, and suggested I call the airport since that wasn't really a police or fire or EMS matter. After I hung up, I started to call the airport, but decided not to because I realized how strange I'd sound. So I picked up my cigs and went home. I woke up this morning and decided to call the non-emergency number again to see if anyone else may have reported what I had seen. The person who answered the phone didn't have any record of any calls about a strange light last night around the time they called. I may not even be allowed to give out information of other reports for a single incident anyway. Has anyone seen a similar light or other UFO sightings in southern West Virginia area recently?